everybody, and welcome back to episode 24 of the On Deck podcast. I'm your host, Roberto, and today we have a ton of prospect call-ups to be going over. We have a really interesting trade between two teams, including a very controversial player. And then we're going to give our love to an old vet at the end of the podcast here. But an absolutely loaded episode for you guys, so I'm excited for this one. So right off the top, we're going to be talking about one of the bigger names when it comes to prospect call-ups this year, and it was Jack Caglione of the Kansas City Royals. And this was a guy that, we saw as a two-way prospect in Florida, and we were all kind of thinking if he was going to be able to continue that once the Royals had drafted him in the number 6 spot. But we kind of saw, the pitching not be as big of a factor as it was in previous years when he was at Florida. And now he's just stuck to hitting. And hitting he does. He absolutely crushes baseballs. He was on an insane pace for minor league home runs and basically forced his way onto the roster. Made the Royals make a move. And I think this was a necessary move for the Royals because this lineup and, this outfield it's not producing. The Royals are running out Hunter Renfroe. And this guy's providing little to no power. And, this was their solution for their power position. But now Caglione is up there and, he hasn't produced to what we thought he would. He does have, he's already got his first couple RBIs out of the way, his first couple hits. Did have a 4-for-4 day at one point. So that's, we can always see that the hit tool is there, and he's hitting the ball extremely hard. But, the results aren't necessarily there at the moment. He's only batting .213. But, this is, again, like I said, this guy hits the ball extremely hard. And his BABIP reflects that. BABIP is a stat that reflects how hard you're hitting the ball, and at what angle, which launch angle, and, it calculates what your average should be based on balls that you've hit. And, there's quite a big discrepancy. He's batting .213 right now. But if you look at his BABIP, he's batting .270. And you can always say that's a great sign because when you go from AAA pitching to Major League pitching, there's always going to be, that adjustment period. And with Caglione, it seems to be not a crazy adjustment. The BABIP is something that you would probably be looking at in this situation, but it's good to see that, he's hitting the ball hard. Nothing's really dropped off from the minor leagues over into the major leagues. But I think all fans, even, all baseball fans around the world, we'd like to see Caglione hit up like 500-foot bombs, which, we know he's very capable of. We saw it last year in the College World Series. Yeah, I know, it's metal bats compared to wood bats, but still, we'd love to see those long home runs. And I think he can absolutely hit some tape measure shots. And, the defense in the outfield it's whatever. I guess it's playable. You kind of just have him in there for his bat and, kind of hope he learns how to play the outfield on the fly. But this is an exciting young prospect that I think that the Royals needed to call up to boost this lineup because outside of Bobby Witt, Michael Garcia and Vinny Pasquantino kind of heating up in the last couple weeks, but yeah, this lineup just needs something, and I think Caglione can easily provide that for this lineup. And as more at bats as he gets, the better he's gonna get. So this is a great situation for Cags and the Royals, and I wish them all the best because I want to see some absolute shots come out of this guy. The next prospect we're going to be talking about is Brewers pitcher Jacob Misiorowski. And this was always a guy that I kind of had my eye on because in the Futures game a couple years ago, you just see this guy walking out of the bullpen, 6'7", lanky, throws absolute smoke from like a 3/4 arm slot, and in his major league debut, he didn't disappoint. Through 5 innings, 5 Ks, no hits. Did have 4 walks, but that's to be expected with him. But man, the fastball was absolutely electric. Electric. I remember just randomly looking at his scout grades. I think it was at some point last year when I saw him touch, it was 102, 103. And, he has an 80 grade fastball, 70 grade slider and curveball. But, his 40 grade was given to his control. And, that's kind of worrying. But at the same time, he is in the Brewers organization. And this is an organization that develops pitching really well. And it kind of shows with the progression of Jacob Misiorowski. This was a guy that was consistently averaging around 5 walks per 9 through his first stint in AA in 2023, all the way up to getting up to AAA in 2024. But then a flip has switched, and the walk is down from 5 to 4.5, which is quite a big drop for a guy like him. But at the same time, this is showing some progression. And the Ks per 9 have always stayed around 11. So this is a guy that's going to give you whiffs and a lot of strikeouts in zone. And I think you can, kind of take the good with the bad with a guy like Misiorowski. But this is a young pitcher that's just going to only get better once he has access to the major league analytics and video room. The pitching coach is only going to help him get better. Hopefully, increase that control so we don't see those walks skyrocket. But I hope this guy stays up for the remainder of the year, because I think this is a guy that can definitely help this rotation. And, if we don't see him be, as effective in the rotation, I can absolutely see him being an absolute weapon in the bullpen. And with his kind of stuff, call me crazy, I might be calling this a little too early. But I can definitely see Misiorowski winning a Cy Young in his future. This stuff is so good that it's impossible not to see it happening. The fastball is absolutely insane, touching 102 in that start against the Cardinals. It was just absolutely nutty. And I hope this guy can stay healthy. I know long, lanky guys throwing hard isn't always necessarily a recipe for success. But Brewers Nation, please keep this guy healthy. Please keep him healthy and on the field. And we definitely could see something special here with Misiorowski. Now, getting back to another player that's kind of forced their hand onto the major league roster, and that is Roman Anthony of the Boston Red Sox. And unfortunately, this call-up was due to Willie Abreu going down with an injury, but man, was it only a matter of time till this guy got called up. In the minor leagues, he was absolutely raking. We all saw the highlights of him hitting almost a 500-foot shot for a grand slam too. Like, the kid is absolutely insane. He was absolutely dominating the minors, and I think it was a matter of time before they made this work somehow. And, although he is struggling a little bit in the 21 at-bats, at the time of recording, he did hit his first major league home run, but still, the batting average isn't there. He was hitting well below under 100. And I think this is just a guy that, I think Boston is sheltering right now. Isn't hitting much against lefties. So, we kind of see him sitting those days, and it's hard to get a feel for, yourself at the plate when you're not getting consistent playing time. This was definitely a guy that benefited from that in the minors, because if you're the best player, you're going to be playing every single day. And, I think this is just a little blip in the road for Roman. We weren't expecting him to be a superstar coming up from the minors, but this is definitely an adjustment period for him. But I think once he gets more consistent ABs, he'll be fine, but we shall touch on that consistency a little later in the podcast. This name will definitely come up once again. But I'm excited for Roman Anthony. This outfield is super, super young, super, super talented. And I'm hoping Willie Abreu comes back so we can see what that outfield will, look like, because it's kind of crowded. You have Cedane Rafaela in center, Willier in right, Jarren Duran, your budding superstar, in left field. And now you slot in your top prospect, Roman Anthony. And it gets interesting. It really gets interesting. So it'd be interesting to see if they have a DH coming out from one of those outfield spots, or how that lineup kind of situates for the future. But I think with a certain somebody gone out of that lineup, I think they can make this work for sure. The last guy we're going to be talking about is Christian Moore of the Los Angeles Angels. And, we all know the Angels for fast-tracking their players. And honestly, I think this might be the one time I kind of agree with them. In 20 games in AAA, he was hitting .350, .424, .575, which equates to an OPS of 999. And, I get it is the PCL, and this is a very hitter-friendly environment, but, the hit tool is undeniable. This is a guy that led the NCAA in hits and total bases just last year, which is, it's crazy to me that this guy was drafted last year, and I know that it is the Angels and they fast-track everybody, but these stats, they speak for themselves. The hit tool is absolutely there. Necessarily hasn't shown it off since hitting the majors, just off to a 1 for 10 in his major league career. Did get his first MLB hit yesterday in Yankee Stadium at the time of recording, and it was a triple, so kind of electric way to start your career. And getting your first hit in Yankee Stadium, I think that's something that almost every young player kind of wants to do, is because it's such a historic franchise. Everybody's always packed into Yankee Stadium. It's just an absolutely insane atmosphere. So to get your first hit as a triple, that's pretty cool for a guy like Christian Moore. Now we're going to get to, the big topic here at hand, and we have Rafael Devers getting traded from the Boston Red Sox to the San Francisco Giants. And, I saw this come across my phone, tweeted by Jeff Passan. I saw it tweeted by a bunch of people, and I thought it was a joke at first, because, Devers has been the face of this Boston franchise for, the past 4 or 5 years. One of the better hitters in all of MLB, power-wise, contact-wise. This is always a guy that, could put up MVP numbers, and was always, I think in my eyes, always kind of underrated not at the third base position, because he doesn't play great defense. But, this was always one of the more underrated hitters in the MLB, because, at the end of the year, you'd look up and you'd see him hitting .275 with 30 plus bombs and 100 plus RBIs, and no one really talked about it. But it's kind of cool to see that the Giants are definitely going for it this year. But in this trade, we have Jordan Hicks, a starter, coming back. In that trade, we have Kyle Harrison, once a highly touted prospect for the San Diego Giants. Kind of hasn't, panned out so far to what we saw in the minors. But, this is a guy that has this stuff. We've seen flashes of it every now and then. But, can we see him put it together for a full year? And then we have 2 minor leaguers going back in this deal as well. We have James Tibbs, an outfielder, and we have another pitcher, Jose Bayo. And honestly, my reaction's right at the moment of this trade was, I was very, very confused because, the Boston Red Sox, I think they just finished sweeping the Yankees that weekend. And, this was quite a surprise to me. Yeah, like I'm still befuddled by this trade. Um, you know, Devers, there's a whole fiasco of him, saying that he's a third baseman and, basically telling Bregman to go play second base, which is crazy for a big free agent that you guys have signed in the offseason. And then, we see Tristan Casas go down with a season-ending knee injury. And, reporters are asking him, oh, can we see you taking reps at first base? And he said, no, I'm sticking to DH. I don't know what Craig Breslow wants from me. DH is my position. Third base was my position at first, but, what can you do? And, I think I even said back in that episode where we were talking about that Tristan Casas injury, I don't think this is a situation where you see Devers being a team guy, like at all. Me personally, I'd be absolutely trying to learn first base on the fly just to open up a spot for, like I was saying at the time, Roman Anthony, who was still crushing baseballs. You want to do what's best for your team, and I think the Boston organization saw this as a time to do the right thing and do what's best for the team, and apparently that was to just trade him and get rid of him. But the benefit of this is that we are now able to see Marcelo Meyer get some extended run at third base. I think this is his time to really show that he belongs on the major league roster because, he's had, a 2 home run game. He's shown his flashes, but I'd like to see more out of him now that he's going to get consistent playing time. I'd like to see him hit against lefties, not be sheltered as much. But again, he is a young player, so we could see that happen still. But now with Devers gone, yeah, that DH spot open. And I know Masataka Yoshida is probably going to come back at some point and clog up that spot because, he's also another butcher in the outfield somehow. But yeah, just off the top, I don't like this trade and the pieces they got back. They didn't get necessarily any big pieces to help them win right now, which is the more concerning part for me. Because Boston, like I said, they're not playing bad. Like, if you look at the record, they're at 38-36, sitting in that third spot for the wild card. And they're only 5.5 out of first place in the AL East. Do I think that they're going to catch the Yankees? No. But this is definitely a wild card built team. And I think if you get more consistent, offensive showing from your young guys, and Garrett Crochet kind of manning that top of the rotation, I think this is absolutely a wild card team. But to see them kind of wave the white flag here and just say, oh yeah, you know what, I think this year's a wash. I don't think this is going to be, the move that makes them better in the long run. I think Devers will definitely strive in San Francisco, which we're going to talk about quickly here in a second. But yeah, I really don't like this move for the Red Sox, but who knows what goes on behind closed doors there in that clubhouse. But yeah, this is a head scratcher from me from the Dodgers side. Still don't like the pieces. Sure, we could see Jordan Hicks go absolutely crazy. Kyle Harrison go crazy in AAA, which I think is also nuts that they just acquired him and immediately send him down to AAA. Like, I think you should give the guy at least a couple starts before you kind of send him down to go work on things. But, I'm not in the front office, so clearly I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just Joe Schmo here sitting and talking about these moves into a mic, and you guys are listening to it. So I don't know anything apparently, but yeah, I don't like this trade for the Red Sox at all. But moving to the San Francisco Giants perspective, I think this trade is great, but also can cause some problems. You know, right now, Matt Chapman is out with a right hand inflammation from diving back to first base on a pickoff attempt. And, you know, Devers and Chapman, you know, play the same position. And we already had seen that Devers wasn't willing to play first base for the Red Sox. And I think you absolutely would take Chapman's defense over Devers there at the hot corner. So do we see Devers be more willing to play first base? Right now, I think they have Dom Smith over there as their projected first baseman. And then you have Wilmer Flores as the DH. And, you know, Wilmer Flores has been, you know, one of the better offensive pieces for the Giants this season. So I don't necessarily think that, you know, Devers is going to come in there and kind of boot Flores out of there. So we might see a platoon at first base with Dom Smith and Wilmer Flores. But it should be interesting, a dynamic there. Do we see Devers more willing to play first base rather than just DH full time? Because, you know, it's a new organization. They could treat him differently rather in Boston. But I like this trade for the Giants. I think this is just another offensive piece to add to this, you know, team that I thought was just going to be mediocre to start the season. But they're playing absolutely insane right now. You know, Jung-Hoo Lee is producing, seeing now a full season of him. We're seeing great performances from the pitching staff. Robbie Ray is back to being Robbie Ray. You know, the walks are still always going to be there, but still striking out a good amount of batters. Logan Webb being Logan Webb, innings eater, consistent as they come. And this bullpen is like, very quietly, one of the better bullpens in the MLB. It's just crazy to see that the Giants are playing this well and are second in the division, obviously behind the Dodgers. But man, I would not have guessed this at all for the Dodgers team coming into the season. And, you know, Willy Adames hasn't even been playing that well. You know, was off to an extremely slow start, like I think most players do after signing quite a big long-term deal. But man, this Giants team has me excited to see what they do at the deadline. Maybe they go get some more pitching, some more bullpen help. Do they get a better infield at maybe an upgrade at second base? Who knows what they do, but this is going to be absolutely exciting for the NL East. And just a playoff picture moving forward, because you have so many teams fighting for so little positions to get into the playoffs, whether that be for the division or the wild card. This is what baseball should be. Exciting all season long. I'm absolutely loving it. And I just want to quickly touch on a subject here that, you know, we didn't really discuss at the top, but Shohei Ohtani returned to pitching. And I don't know, I completely forgot about this, but he did pitch yesterday in Los Angeles against San Diego. And another quick thing, the prices, the prices in Dodger Stadium I was seeing online was $12,000. $12,000. And I don't know about you, but I had all the feeling in the world that Ohtani wasn't going to go more than, 3 innings, because one, it's the Dodgers and they kind of need pitching to stay healthy. 2, this is the first time he's been on the mound in, it feels like 2 years. And 3, they're playing the Padres. I don't think they're going to let him run that long in this crazy lineup anyway. And to see those prices where that's just LA being LA. But oh my gosh, I was like, how can anybody afford to go to baseball games anymore? But anyways, move off of that tangent. We did see Ohtani return to the mound. For one inning, he was the opener in this game against the Padres, and he looked okay. The velo was absolutely back. He threw 28 pitches, 16 of those were strikes, and did on one of his four seamers hit 100.2. And that's good to see that the velocity was back right away. Usually we see pitchers kind of build up that velocity over time. We can look at a Spencer Strider as a good example. But it's good to see that, Ohtani still has that velocity there. I did see a report saying that he was trying to sit 95 to 96. But we all know, especially as pitchers, adrenaline kicks in and gives us that extra oomph behind some of the pitches. But it's good to see that, a lot of Ohtani's pitches were above that 97, 98 range where, we'd like to see him be throwing. But he also did show off, a couple sweepers, couple splitters, did throw an absolute demon sinker to Luis Arias at the bottom of the zone at 97. So the fact that he's learning how to throw a sinker with all those other pitches, I think is going to be an absolute weapon. And honestly, I'm kind of terrified to see what he looks like in like quote unquote final form. But it's just great to see the best player in baseball, pound for pound, just get back on the mound. And I can't wait to see him go like 6 innings with like 9 Ks and then just hit like a bomb and like steal 2 bases. Like, that's what I'd love to see Ohtani do. And, who knows, maybe in a couple months we could see him being absolutely dominant again. And I don't think anybody would be surprised at all. So I'm a big Ohtani fan just because the fact that he's a two-way doing this, like basically being a kid at the major league level. Like, I think that's what everybody strives to be. And they kind of give up on one at some point or another. But just to see this guy doing this every single year for, who knows, the next 10 years at least, it's going to be a treat to watch. And to close things out today, I just want to give a little cool shout out to Andrew McCutchen. This was a guy that, I've always liked as a player. He was a part of the Yankees at one point, so, I kind of grew a little fond of him. But this is a guy that, is a lifetime Pirate. I don't care, those middle years where he was on the Giants, Yankees, Phillies. I feel like there was another team that I'm missing, but those years don't really matter. Those years don't matter at all. This guy's a Pirate for life, and it's shown in his home run number. A couple weeks ago, he tied Roberto Clemente for career home runs with the franchise at 240, and has passed him now. Now has 242 home runs on his Pittsburgh tenure. And, this was a guy that I thought was honestly done. A couple years ago with the Phillies when he had tore his, I think it was his ACL. And, he signed with I forgot. He signed with the Brewers. I think he signed with the Brewers after was just primarily their DH, and produced, somewhat. And I'm just glad to see that he's still playing and being, kind of in that mentor role now here in Pittsburgh. And honestly, there isn't much to be happy about in Bucks Nation, but it's good to see that he's still playing at his age, in his age 38 season. Wow. It's good to see that he's still producing his OPS plus over 100 still, so much better than league average. But I think we'll all remember Andrew McCutchen for, those early days in the Pittsburgh uniform with the MVPs, all the all-star nods. Definitely the dreads. It's weird to see him without the dreads, but He's a little older now, but yeah, just wanted to give a shout out to Andrew McCutchen for hitting that milestone. And I think we might be coming back to a pitcher milestone in a couple weeks with Clayton Kershaw approaching 3,000 career strikeouts. But yeah, this is definitely cool to, see these players that, I saw as superstars kind of age into, their older years as, more mentors in smaller roles. But love to see these guys still producing, and wishing nothing but continued success for a guy like Andrew McCutchen, one of the better guys in the MLB. But that's going to conclude everything for today's podcast. I hope you guys all enjoyed. There was a lot to unpack these last couple days, but appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you guys could rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, and follow the podcast on Instagram or X at the On Deck Pod. It's greatly appreciated. Helps get the podcast out there. And yeah, baseball is getting exciting. We have the All-Star break approaching, and we could have some first-time All-Stars. We could have some, it'd be their umpteenth time being an All-Star. So it's exciting to see all that voting and how that comes through. But with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks.